Hello, Ammon.
Hello, Ammon.
Is this Ammon?
Yes, this is Ammon.
Hi, Ammon. This is William Wagner. On second thought, I hope we give you some second thoughts. We have Ammon Bundy coming up here. Here we go. Here's Ammon Bundy's call. Hello. Can you see me, Ammon?
I can't see it yet. There you are.
Yeah, here I am. We're in the studio in Santa Maria. We're recording. We're not live. But I just wanted to get an update on you. Today is what, May 6th? What is today?
Yeah,
The 6th.
it's the 6th today.
Yeah, 6th of May, 2015. A year ago, back in April, you were with your dad, Cleveland Bundy. Did you expect to die that day when all those federal agents showed up and the militia showed up from everywhere and there wasn't really a coordinated militia commando?
Well, it was, the federal agents, there was 5 federal agencies there, and they came in on and it took them about 10 days to set up a military compound there about 5 miles from the ranch house. And so we were there and we were seeing what they were doing. And so it was it was a buildup. And then after 10 days on April 5th, they actually put siege on the ranch and locked the ranch down. And that's when the abuse started happening, when they beat my brother nearly to death, and then we started protesting what was happening, and so it was progressive, and then that went on until the end of the week because their abuses were so great. They had locked down the ranch. They had around 200 fully armed men, snipers, surveillance equipment, over 107 vehicles that were involved. They had built this military base with communication towers. It was a command point, really. This was going on, and so people around the country started seeing what was happening. They started seeing this abuse, and they started seeing, these horrific actions, and so they started coming. And they were coming from all over. We had people from Connecticut, from Alaska, from Florida, from Virginia, New Hampshire, Texas, Utah, California, and everywhere in between.
Montana?
And
Wyoming?
What's that?
From Montana, Wyoming too?
Montana, Wyoming.
Tennessee?
We figured, we really don't have any proof of it, but from what we gather, we had people from every state of the union.
Wow. Were you there when it all started, or did you come after your brother got assaulted and the woman got thrown to the ground?
Yeah, well, I actually came after my brother got assaulted, but I was there, and I'm the one that got tased and everything on that same day that Margaret got thrown to the ground, where she was body slammed to the ground.
Yeah,
where they stick their dogs on us.
Was there any need? I saw the video. I couldn't see any reason for them to body slam Margaret to the ground.
No, there was no need. There was no need for them to even stop. The protesters were protesting them as they were driving by, and they decided to stop and get out and confront us. And so there was really no need to even stop. It wasn't until after they stopped and got out that I drove my four-wheeler in front of the dump truck with a backhoe, and then actually stopped that dump truck because we wanted to know why they were so heavily escorting that dump truck and what was in the back of it, and because they'd been up on our ranch, tearing out something and doing damage to something. We didn't know what, and we felt it our duty and our responsibility to find out what they were doing in our mountains with that dump truck and backhoe. Now,
which side of your family's been having grazing rights there for 100 years? Is it your mother's side of the family or your father's side?
It's actually my grandmother's on my father's side.
And
my grandmother on my father's side, Dudley Levitt and Myron Abbott came in 1877 and established those grazing and water rights in that area.
There wasn't a BLM in existence at that time, was there?
No, the BLM didn't come into existence until 1946.
And when did the state of Nevada incorporate?
In 1864.
So you came in there shortly after the state of Nevada was created.
That's correct.
And the state of Nevada didn't really ever have a problem with your grandfathers, did they?
No, we have still to this day we have followed every county and state law. We have, our rights are filed in the state records. Our water rights are vested water rights filed with the state of Nevada, and the grazing rights are connected to the water rights. They're clear, clear as they can be legally in the state of Nevada. But this is the problem. We have a predatory federal government who is seeking to steal the resources away from the people. And they have in the West saw opportunities because it was so arid and open. They saw opportunity to come in and claim these lands and claim these resources. And the people really didn't put up much of a fight because it wasn't really an issue at first. But now they went from basically saying, hey, we're supposed to control the disposal of these lands to sell them to the people, to now we're going to manage the lands. And then as all bureaucracies develop, and evolve, then next thing they know, they're claiming that they actually own the land. This is land inside of the state of Nevada that they're saying is a U.S. territory.
I get it. Your family spent, 18, 20 years fighting them over some desert tortoise? The government claimed you were killing the tortoise? And then they had to kill the tortoise themselves at their own tortoise reservation in North Las Vegas. Does any of this make sense to you or your father?
No, it doesn't, because their motivation is not to protect the environment or to protect wildlife. It's not to protect. It's to control. They just use the environment, or they use the wildlife, endangered species. They use them as a tool to get the public sympathy so that they can go in and destroy these families and take over their resources. And that's all it is. And evidence of that is the Bundy Ranch. 25 years ago, there was 53 ranchers that were ranching in Clark County. And they came in and said, you ranchers can no longer ranch here because we're going to take your ranches so that we can preserve the desert tortoise. And they literally regulated the ranchers out of business. They said, hey, look, you can't run your cattle during these times of the years. You can't run them in these areas. You can only run so many because we've got to preserve the desert tortoise, right? And basically what happened is it put 52 out of the 53 ranchers out of business. Wow. And they couldn't live any longer under those regulations, so they gave up. My dad said, well, I'm not abiding by your rules and regulations because you're not following the Constitution. Nowhere in the Constitution does it give the federal government authority to manage and control massive amounts of land inside the state. And so my dad, very clearly understanding his rights, said, I am not going to allow you to regulate me out of business. I'm following the state laws. I'm following the county laws. I've been here longer than you have. In fact, my family's been there longer than Las Vegas has been there. Las Vegas wasn't even a city. There wasn't even one tent there when we came in there. And so basically, what happened was over this period of time, over this 25 years of time, they never did use those ranches that they run off for the desert tortoise. They built a facility and they put the desert tortoises there, and then they multiplied, and they multiplied so much that they had to start euthanizing them. And now they're euthanized over 10,000 turtles.
That's insane.
Meanwhile,
that's insane.
It's insane, right? And now let me just deepen the plot, because they also enacted what they called a turtle mitigation fee. So every contractor, any contract that was in Southern Nevada, had to pay into this turtle mitigation fee. They collected over $2 billion over the last 20 years. $2 billion. No one knows where that went. No one knows where that went. So they put 53 ranchers. They said that the reason they're doing it is to save the desert tortoise. They never did use the land for the desert tortoise. They put 53 ranchers out of business, collected over $2 billion where we don't know we don't even know where that money went, and they are euthanizing the desert tortoise by the tens of thousands.
Did Clark County collect that $2 billion in tortoise fees?
Mitigation fees.
Was it the Clark County or was it the BLM?
It was the county, and it was distributed to the Bureau of Land Management and the other agencies.
Now, your great-grandfathers, they didn't have to pay grazing fees 100 years ago, did they?
No, absolutely not. Because it's just like water rights. You don't pay fees on your rights.
Right.
You only pay fees on somebody else's rights.
So this is a false flag that they're throwing in the media, that you're not paying your grazing fees. And I understand your father told me that he had offered to give the same amount as the grazing fees to Clark County, but they wouldn't cash the check.
That's correct. He actually wrote him a check and sent it. But see, under the state and county laws, there is no fee for grazing. It's a vested right, just like water, right? It's just like your home. If you go in and buy a home, you pay it off, you don't have a payment. And you also don't pay rent. And you don't pay rent for your home. So that's the same with these rights. They're a property right. Grazing rights are a property right. And so we own those rights. We might be required to pay a tax on them, but Nevada and Clark County does not require a tax on grazing rights, neither on water rights. So therefore, there is no way for us to pay a tax or a fee. We would never pay a fee because they're ours, right? We would never pay rent on something that is ours. Neither would anybody in this country in their right mind. But this is where the crux of this is, because the BLM say that they're their rights, and then they say because they're our rights, you have to pay us a fee for them. And that's where my dad says, no, they are my rights, and I'll be damned if I'm ever going to pay you a fee for my rights. And that's basically where we're at.
Yeah, he doesn't recognize the federal jurisdiction, is what he said at the Crown Plaza Hotel in February. He just doesn't recognize the jurisdiction to even be there.
As far as I'm concerned, and in my mind, the federal government, it's impossible for the federal government, under our Constitution, to own land in the state of Nevada.
Here's my question to you, twofold. One, they did probably at least $100,000 worth of damage to your water distribution system, killed what, 2 breeding bulls and another 20, 30 heifers and calves?
That's correct, yeah.
And that's a loss of...
And injured a whole bunch more as well.
That's at least $100,000 damage, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
So if you were to go sue them in federal court for damages, you didn't get justice in these federal courts in the first place. Do you think you would get justice by suing them in federal court?
Absolutely not. There is no justice found for the American people in the federal courts. None in the federal court system, especially when you're taking the federal government to task. And I think my dad explains it best. It's like, let's say a man comes into your house and he beats up your wife, right? And so you sue him. And on the court day, you go into the courtroom and they say, all arise for the honorable judge. And the judge comes in a black coat, and it's the very man that beat up your wife. How do you think it's going to go?
Right, exactly. I get the point.
That's exactly what happens when you're talking about taking the federal court to task in their own court system. There's no justice for the American people in the federal court system.
So your dad said at the Crown Plaza he didn't know anything about grand juries. Have you or your brothers or sisters thought about gathering together 23 people under U.S. versus Williams, 504 U.S. 36, a U.S. Supreme Court case, and forming your own grand jury to indict the BLM and Clark County Sheriff for not defending you?
We have not, mainly mostly because of lack of knowledge. I've looked into grand juries a little bit, but do not basically have enough knowledge and information to do that. What we are sure of, though, is that we know that in order to maintain rights, that we must claim them. We must make it clear that they are ours, and we have done that. We also know that we have to continue to use them and prove that beneficial use that we have used them, which we have done. And then we are willing to defend them in whatever matter when they come to try to take them. And that's what happened. And we prevailed because it's clearly ours. We claim them. They're clearly ours. We have been using them. We have nonstop used them. And then we were willing to give our life, if necessary, to defend them. And I'm very grateful we did not have to do that, because the American people come together and helped us defend our rights. Now, if a grand jury is another tool to be able to defend our rights, then we are certainly interested in that, absolutely.
Well, I encourage you, Mr. Bundy, to go read up on the internet the U.S. Supreme Court case of 1992 with Antoine Scalia giving the majority opinion 6-3 that there's a fourth branch of government, and it's embodied in the grand jury. And that grand jury, whether you call it a common law grand jury or you don't call it a grand jury, it speaks for the fourth branch of government when they duly take a proper oath and they record that oath, probably both in the federal jurisdiction courthouse and in the county courthouse of Clark County. And you take these 23 people and they take evidence, and it seems to me you would have no problem finding witnesses to come and testify to the damages done. And then you could issue warrants, criminal warrants, under a true bill of indictment with a criminal warrant attached based on the evidence and affidavits of the damage they did. You could sue, I think, for cattle rustling. You could sue because they hired private cowboys, did they not? And the private cowboys came up and did cattle rustling.
Yeah, they did. They paid him $900 and I think it was $800,000 to as a contract to come in and take these cattle, and then the 200 armed men were there as a protection and a defense for those cattle rustlers, and that's why they put the ranch under siege. That's why they locked everything down, and we weren't able to get out there. And they threatened that if we step off the paved roads, that they would take our life. That's what they threatened. So, and they appeared to be very serious about those threats. They told us that if we resisted in any way, that this would be another Waco or Ruby Ridge, and that was their own words.
They said that to you?
They said that too.
Do you know the name of the BLM officer who said that?
We know the first name, and we could identify him. We could identify him if we saw him, but his first name was Michael.
Well, you had a reunion a year later. How did that go?
Oh, now I'm there now.
Are you there? I lost you for a minute. No, leave the tape roll.
I don't know what happened.
I don't know either. We just lost you, lost your image, lost your voice. But how do you feel about Fox News coming out there saying they're going to do a big story, and they did one day and then they disappeared?
Well, they sure appeared to be controlled by somebody, and someone told them to turn it off. The other thing is Fox News has some of the best footage of anybody out there. And I particularly mean Sean Hannity, the Sean Hannity show, because we involved them in when we actually went down there and actually drove the BLM and the other agencies off. And they were there, and they were right there with us. We allowed them to be right there beside us. They filmed the whole thing. They were there. We kind of basically gave them privilege to be right there by us. And then they didn't show any of that footage, none of it. So they have a tremendous amount of footage that truly shows what really happened there. So
should anybody rely on and trust Fox News for Sean Hannity and specifically?
You know what? I don't want to ostracize them but I do know that as soon as someone either told them to cut and run, or as soon as they felt in any way that it wasn't beneficial to them, they just left, and no longer were we something to talk about. No longer were they going to explain what really happened there. And it was tremendous what happened there. 3,000 people gathered together and run off 5 federal agencies and give them a half an hour to do it. And they left in 107 vehicles. And they left in flight in, like I said, less than an hour.
Right.
And it was amazing what happened there.
Well, I appreciate you taking your time out of your day to join us, but we're out of time in the studio today. Mr. Bundy, I very much appreciate you coming on this show On Second Thought. I would highly recommend you check out that case of U.S. versus Williams, 1992 case. The citation is 504 U.S. 36. I'll text it to you too.
Okay, I'll look forward to it actually.
Maybe we can do another interview in a couple of weeks.
I would love that. I would love to share with the American people in your audience of what we see happening now and what that means to them.
Okay, let's see if we can do this, maybe even this Friday night when I do a live show.
Well, hey, I don't know how this Skype worked, but it seemed to work pretty good for me, and I'd love to come on again.
Okay, let's do it. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
You do the same. Thank you.
Peace.